In the heart of Bangalore, in a crowded apartment building where hundreds lived side by side, no one realized that behind one locked door lay a nightmare. For weeks, a young woman named Mahalakshmi seemed to have vanished into silence. Her phone was switched off, her flat remained bolted, and her absence went unnoticed in the rush of the city life. But then an unbearable stench began seeping through the corridors, a smell so foul that it drove neighbors to search for its source. It came from the bolted Mahalakshmi's flat. Her family was notified and they used a spare key to unlock a scene of unimaginable horror. The air inside was thick with the stench of decay. The floor was sticky with what was later identified as blood and other bodily fluids that had seeped from a small single door 165-liter refrigerator standing in the room. When Mahalakshmi's mother and sister opened the appliance, they were confronted with a sight that defied comprehension: the dismembered remains of Mahalakshmi packed inside. This is the case of Mahalakshmi. Mahalakshmi was a 29-year-old woman whose life was marked by migration and a series of complex, often fraught, personal relationships. While some initial reports stated that she was from Tripura, the consensus of later, more detailed accounts indicates her family hailed from Nepal, having settled in Neelamangala, a town on the outskirts of Bangalore approximately 35 years prior. She was one of 3 children and would go on to build a life in the region that was both aspirational and tumultuous. Mahalakshmi was married to Hemant Das, a resident of Neelamangala who ran a mobile phone accessory store. Together, they had a 4-year-old daughter. However, the marriage, which lasted about 6 years, was not a happy one. By October 2023, they had separated, entering into a bitter phase of hostility that would be later reflected in police records. The separation was contentious. Mahalakshmi filed a police case against Hemant, and he, in turn, filed one against her. In February 2024, Hemant alleged that during a heated argument, Mahalakshmi had bitten him on the chest and stomach. The relationship was further strained by allegations of Mahalakshmi having an affair. Since September 2023, Mahalakshmi had been living apart from Hemant, though the two were not legally divorced. Their relationship remained strained, and frequent arguments fueled by Hemant's suspicions that she was having an affair. Initially, Mahalakshmi kept their daughter with her, but eventually sent the child to live with Hemant, who assumed primary care. Even so, Mahalakshmi continued to visit her daughter every 10 to 15 days. After parting ways with her husband and child, Mahalakshmi stayed briefly with her brother Hukum Singh and his wife. But they moved to Gunjar after a fight with Mahalakshmi. Mahalakshmi then relocated to the city and rented a modest 1-bedroom apartment on the first floor of a building in Vyalikawal, Bangalore. She found work at a popular mall, a job that demanded long and late hours. Her daily routine involved leaving for work around 9:30 a.m. and not returning until after 10:30 p.m. This demanding schedule left little time for social interactions. Neighbors described her as a private individual who rarely spoke to anyone, to the extent that most were unaware she was married or had a child. This isolation proved to be a critical factor in the timeline of the crime. In a bustling metropolis like Bangalore, it is tragically possible for an individual to vanish from daily life without raising an immediate alarm. This social invisibility would provide her killer with an invaluable commodity: time. Mahalakshmi was last seen by her family on 19th August. It would take 3 weeks before anyone noticed that Mahalakshmi was missing. In late September, Mahalakshmi's neighbors noticed a foul smell seeping through the corridors. At first, the smell was faint, but it soon became so overpowering that they began searching for its source. Their search led them to a locked flat on the first floor. It was the flat where Mahalakshmi lived. Unable to ignore the odor any longer, the neighbors contacted the building's landlord and lodged a complaint. When the landlord tried calling Mahalakshmi, her phone was switched off. Realizing the urgency, he pulled out her rental agreement, which listed her mother and elder sister Lakshmi as emergency contacts. Lakshmi was informed that a strong stench was coming from Mahalakshmi's flat, which was locked from outside, and that her sister's phone remained unreachable. Lakshmi passed the information to her mother Meena Rana and her brother Hukum Singh. Since it was already 7 p.m., the family decided to visit the house the following morning. But the next day, on September 21, 2024, the smell had worsened so much that it was noticeable from the outside building. When Mahalakshmi's mother Meena, sister Lakshmi, and brother-in-law Imran arrived, the flat was still locked. Her phone remained switched off, and the stench was unbearable. Using the spare key, they opened the door. The moment they pushed the door open, a suffocating stench hit them so hard that it was difficult to stand still even for a second. The flat was a small one-bedroom unit opening directly into the cramped living space. Meena went in first, followed by her elder daughter Lakshmi, who held up her mobile phone to record what they were about to find. Both of them covered their mouths and noses, forcing themselves forward as the buzzing of hundreds of flies filled the air. Lakshmi checked the attached bathroom, but it was clean. There was nothing inside that could explain the overpowering odor. The room itself was sparsely furnished with no bed, only a mat and some bed sheets laid out on the floor. A large black suitcase sat nearby. Still, Meena's attention was drawn to another spot, the refrigerator. It was there that the stench and the swarm of flies were most concentrated. Before Lakshmi could react, Meena pulled open the refrigerator door. A violent wave of rotten air burst out, forcing her to recoil. And then came the sight that would never leave her memory. Inside, Mahalakshmi's body had been dismembered and stuffed into 3 shelves of the refrigerator. On the bottom shelf lay her severed head. Meena and Lakshmi ran out screaming. For a mother, such a discovery was beyond the limits of human endurance. The shock, the grief, the horror, it was a moment impossible to forget, etched into her life forever. By then, neighbors had gathered outside the flat, horrified by what they had heard. The police were called in immediately. The police arrived shortly after, but even they were hesitant to enter. The stench was so overwhelming that officers had to wear double masks before stepping in. One of the officers even vomited multiple times. Inside, they confronted one of the most gruesome crime scenes they had ever witnessed. The crime was not just a murder, it was a meticulous, brutal act of desecration. The victim's body had been chopped into dozens of pieces. Reports varied from over 40 to as many as 59 and stored in the refrigerator in an attempt to conceal the act. Her body was in the advanced state of decomposition. The fact that the stench only became noticeable recently indicated that the refrigerator had delayed the spread of odor, and many days had already passed since the murder. Forensic Science Laboratory and scene of crime officer teams were immediately summoned to meticulously collect the evidence, including fingerprints and blood samples. Forensic report established that Mahalakshmi's death had occurred approximately 19 days earlier. In the initial phase of the investigation, the police pursued multiple lines of inquiry. One of the first individuals brought in for questioning was Mahalakshmi's estranged husband, Hemant Das. He explained that Mahalakshmi had been living apart from him and would only visit when she wished to see her daughter. According to him, the last time he saw her was about a month earlier. During the interrogation, Hemant disclosed that while they were married, Mahalakshmi had worked at a clothing store, Fashion Factory in Malleswaram. He claimed that she was involved in a relationship with another man, which had led to frequent quarrels between them. He further revealed that on one occasion, he had discovered messages exchanged between Mahalakshmi and a man named Ashraf. Because of his alleged affair, Hemant had filed a police complaint against Ashraf. In retaliation, Mahalakshmi had lodged a complaint of physical assault against Hemant. Hemant stated that he had not visited Mahalakshmi's residence for months. Police cross-checked his claim with CCTV footage from the area, which confirmed that Hemant had not been near Mahalakshmi's apartment during the critical period. Hemant was cleared as a suspect. The police then shifted their investigation onto Ashraf, who became the prime suspect. Ashraf was a barber in Bangaluru, originally from Uttarakhand. It was confirmed that Ashraf had an affair with Mahalakshmi, but they had ended things a few months ago. Location records and call details confirmed Ashraf had ended all contacts with Mahalakshmi months earlier. With this, he was also cleared as a suspect. The police then turned their attention to Mahalakshmi's workplace, questioning her colleagues and scrutinizing her personal life. Investigators discovered that her phone had been switched off since September 2nd. They cross-referenced this with employee records from her workplace and found a critical correlation. Her team leader, Mukti Ranjan Ray, had also been absent from work since the same day. Further analysis of their respective phone records and private chats confirmed a close 8-month relationship and placed him at the center of the investigation. Combined with the CCTV footage from the area, this digital trail allowed police to zero in on Mukti as the prime suspect. Mukti Ranjan Ray, approximately 30-year-old, was a native of the village of Dhosari in the Bhadrak district of Odisha. The investigation transformed into a multi-state manhunt. Digital tracking showed that Mukti had fled Bangalore, traveling through Bhubaneswar in his home state of Odisha, and was believed to be hiding either in Odisha or neighboring state of West Bengal. Multiple police teams were dispatched across the country in a race against time to apprehend him. The most significant breakthrough in the manhunt came not from a technical trace, but from a human source. Investigators tracked down Mukti's brother, Smriti Ranjan, who was also living in Bengaluru. Under questioning, the brother provided a damning confirmation. He told police that immediately after the crime, Mukti had sought out Smriti and confessed to him what he had done. Smriti told police that before leaving Bangalore, he asked Smriti to leave Bangalore as well. From Bangalore, Mukti travelled to Berhampur in Odisha, where he took refuge with his younger brother Satya Ranjan for approximately 10 to 12 days. There too, he could not keep the secret, revealing the details of the murder to his brother. As the police investigation intensified, Mukti moved again, this time to his family's home in Bhadrak district, arriving on the evening of September 24th, a place he had not visited for nearly 2 years. He told his family that he had come on emergency work. That evening, he broke down completely, confessing the entire story to his mother, sobbing as he recounted the murder. He stayed one last night in his family home. In the pre-dawn hours of September 25th, 2024, Mukti left the house on his father's scooter. He rode to an isolated graveyard roughly 1.5 kilometers from his village. There he took a rope and hung himself from a tree. His body was discovered later that morning by locals who alerted the police. With the death of Mukti Ranjan Ray, the sole suspect and confessed killer, the criminal case into the murder of Mahalakshmi came to an abrupt and legally definitive end. There would be no arrest, no trial, no conviction, and no sentencing. Near his body, police found a diary containing a detailed suicide note that served as his final statement and confession. Written in a combination of his native Odia and broken English, the note was a full confession to the crime. He wrote that he met Mahalakshmi 6 months ago at work. At first, their relationship blossomed into a romantic relationship. They worked together, spent holidays together, and Mukti showered her with expensive gifts. He was fully aware of Mahalakshmi's troubled past, but accepted her regardless. Over time, however, he began noticing changes in her behavior. Mahalakshmi seemed distant, spent hours on the phone during work, and avoided him. Mukti grew suspicious that she was seeing someone else. Tensions escalated. According to Mukti, Mahalakshmi was extremely hot-tempered and money-minded. Her anger was so intense that in a fit of rage, she was capable of doing anything. They would constantly fight, some of which escalated to such an extent that they turned violent. Yet, despite the toxic relationship, the two reconciled repeatedly. Mukti also portrayed himself as a victim of financial exploitation as well. He alleged that Mahalakshmi's demands were continuously increasing, and that he had already given her a significant sum of money, stated as rupees 7 lakh rupees, along with her gold chain. His mother later corroborated parts of his claim, telling investigators that Mahalakshmi had taken her son's gold chain and a ring, and that he was disturbed by the financial strain. Mukti's brother Satya Ranjan, in a later interview, said that his brother was deeply in love with Mahalakshmi and had plans to marry her. However, things took a dark turn when Mahalakshmi accused Mukti of kidnapping her, leading to public humiliation and physical assault. He told the reporters that Mukti wanted to marry Mahalakshmi and was taking her on a bike to Kerala, as they had mutually decided to relocate themselves to that state. But on the way to Kerala, she accused him of kidnapping, and the public beat Mukti severely before handing him over to the local police. He was even assaulted by the police and was only released after paying a bribe of rupees 1,000. He also said that Mukti had been mentally disturbed due to the constant blackmail and financial demands from Mahalakshmi. September 1st was the last day both had reported to work. On September 2nd, Mukti called Mahalakshmi saying he wanted to meet her. Mahalakshmi allowed him to come to her Vyalikawal apartment. That night, the meeting turned violent. He wrote that Mahalakshmi was constantly nagging him to marry her. She was insecure about her financial stability and wanted commitment. But Mukti hesitated. He questioned her character and could not see a future with her. The note also claimed that Mahalakshmi had wanted to kill him and even bought a black suitcase to dispose of his body. In the note, he alleged that Mahalakshmi used to beat him up when he failed to fulfill her demands. That night, Mahalakshmi pressed Mukti to marry her. The argument escalated, and when Mahalakshmi once again raised her hand on him, Mukti snapped. In a fit of uncontrollable rage, he struck her on the head with a heavy object. As she lay bleeding, his anger did not subside. He strangled her to death. By then, it was already September 3rd. Mukti sat in the same room for hours, staring at Mahalakshmi's lifeless body. Desperate to cover his tracks, he spent the entire night thinking of ways to dispose of the body. At 11 a.m., he left the apartment and purchased a sharp knife from a nearby utensils shop, a purchase later captured on CCTV and used by police to confirm his actions. Using the knife, Mukti dismembered Mahalakshmi's body. His initial plan was to pack the remains into the suitcase and dispose of them, but the neighborhood was too crowded with people late into the night, and he feared being caught. Then his eyes fell on the 165-liter refrigerator in the flat. He decided to hide the remains inside, believing the smell would be contained for weeks. He cleaned the house thoroughly, locked the door, and left. Unlike a hardened criminal, Mukti was overwhelmed with guilt almost immediately. He confided in his brother and left Bengaluru. The suicide of Mukti Ranjan Ray fundamentally altered the legal trajectory of the case. With the sole accused deceased, the criminal proceedings against him could not continue. In such circumstances, the law provides for a specific procedural conclusion, the filing of an abated charge sheet. This is a formal report submitted to the court by the investigating agency which details the crime and the evidence gathered, but concludes that the case is discontinued due to the death of the perpetrator. It serves to officially close the investigation file when a trial is no longer possible.